Hello students, in this video I am going to discuss one of the most important topics, that is cell. Well students, you all know that cell is the fundamental and functional unit of life, and this is so easy to know because we all have heard this definition since childhood from class 6. Okay, but important is to know about how it got discovered. So in this session we are going to I'm going to give you the brief introduction of the cell, and it will be completed in two sections, part 1, part 2. So this is for the part 1, this is part 1. So here in this session I'm going to talk about cell components, introduction of cell, then discovery, important historical points, size and shape, components, etc. Okay, so students, if I talk about cell, so the very first time the word cell was used to refer to tiny units of life in the year 1665 by a British scientist, Robert Hooke. So he was the person behind his discovery, Robert Hooke, in the year 1665. For the first time discovered cell, and he used his primitive microscope, which was not well advanced, and because those days microscopes were not very advanced or very strong, but Hooke was able to make an important discovery using his primitive microscope. When he looked at a thin slice of cork under his microscope, he was surprised to see honeycomb-like structures, as I have shown you here. Okay, those structures look like compartments, and hence he called them cells, and this is how the cell discovery. So it was a very significant discovery, and for the first time we all came to know about a term cell which exists in a body or in a part. Okay, now let's talk about size and shape of cells. So well student, usually cells vary in shape and size. Okay, so if I talk about this part, so most of the cells are seen to be oval, spherical, spindle, and irregular or branched, like nerve cells. Okay, like branched like nerve cells. So usually the cells have oval shape, spherical, spindle, or they are irregular like nerve cells. Now if I talk about size, the size of the cell varies in different animals and plants. Okay, so most of the cells are microscopic. Microscopic like RBC. Okay, while some are large like nerve cells. If I talk about the large cells like nerve cell. Okay, and average size of cell varies from 0.5 to 20 micrometer. Okay, so usually the cell size varies from 0.5 to 20 micrometer. Now here I'm giving you the picture of these cells with various shape and sizes. Okay, the picture is not clear here of nerve cell, but I'm drawing it for you all so that you can get clear about the structures. So this is how nerve cells look like. There they possess a myelin sheath over them. Okay, this long branch structure is called axon. Nucleus, these are the branches which we call dendrites. Fine, these are the dendrites. The central elongated structure is called axon. These are the dendrites. These are the nerve terminals. Okay, we will discuss all these later in the other sessions. Okay, so now here the particular point is to show you about the sizes and shapes of the cells. So this is how the cells look like. Some of them are oval, some of them are spherical, some of them are spindle, while some of them are irregular branch like nerve cells. Okay, here I'm giving you a note which is important. Now look at the note. The smallest cell varies from zero point 0.1 to 0.5 micrometer and is found in bacteria. Whereas the largest cell is about 170 mm into 130 mm and is the egg of ostrich, the biggest cell. Okay, so this is important because many a time examiner ask objective questions from this particular part. So this particular part is very important, because if you are appearing for any kind of exam, whether it is academics or SSC or any exam, this is going to be one of the most important ones. So be specific with this note. Okay, now let's move to the important historical points related to cell discovery. In 1674, Leeuwenhoek, with the help of developed microscope, discovered the free living cells in pond water. In 1665, Robert Hooke discovered cell with the help of simple and primitive microscope. Later, in 1674, Leeuwenhoek further proceeded the theory, and he made confirm the particular discovery of the cells using his microscope, and he observed free living cells in the pond water. Okay. Then in 1831, Robert Brown had discovered the nucleus in the cell, one of the very important points. Okay, this also comes in exam. Further, in 1831, Robert Brown had discovered the nucleus. So if the question asks you who discovered the nucleus in the cell, the answer should be Robert Brown. When? In 1831. It was a significant discovery of that particular time. Okay. Now the third point is, in 1839, Purkinje used the term protoplasm for the fluid substance found in the cell, which is now known as cytoplasm. So this is again an important point. In 1839, Purkinje used the term protoplasm, okay, for the fluid substance found in the cell, which is typically jelly-like. Okay. Now the fourth is, the cell theory was proposed by, who proposed cell theory? By Skeldon, Shawn and Virchow. So in 1838 by Skeldon, Shawn in year 1839 and Virchow in year 1855. They togetherly, what they proposed was togetherly composed as cell theory. Okay. So what the cell theory states you, according to the cell theory, all the plants and animals are composed of cells, and the cell is the basic unit of life. Okay. So excuse me. The cell is the basic unit of life. So this is what they all have proposed, and in brief they found it clear that all the plants and animal cells are composed of cells, and cells are the basic unit of life. Okay. The second point is, in 1855, Virchow further expanded the cell theory and suggested that all cells arise from pre-existing cells. They all have their existence from already existing cells. And also, the life function of organisms occur within the cell. So these were the 3 points that was in the cell theory. Okay. Then in the year 1940, the discovery of electron microscope made possible to observe and understand the complex structure of cell. Yes. Now in year 1940, the discovery of electronic microscope, which is now used nowadays, okay, had made possible to observe and understand the complex structure of cell. So now we all know about a lot about the cell components, but it was just because of the discovery of electron microscope, which took place in year 1940. Okay. Now we are going to discuss the structures shared by all cells. So what are the typical structures which is found to be present in all kind of cells? So the first is plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is also called a cell membrane. It is an outer margin or outer lining of the cell. It is a thin coat of phospholipids that surrounds cell. Okay. So this is important. Be specific with it. So you have to remember, basically it forms a physical boundary. I can say the cell membrane forms a physical boundary. This form a physical boundary, okay, between cell and its environment. Between cell and its environment. Clear? So you have to be specific with this. Plasma membrane is also called cell membrane. It is a thin coat of phospholipids that surrounds a cell, and they form a physical boundary between cell and its environment. The next is cytoplasm. It refers to all the cellular material or structures inside the plasma membrane or the cell membrane. Okay. Now you have to be specifically clear with this, that cytoplasm usually made up of a watery substance. Cytoplasm is made up of a watery substance, and that watery substance is cytosol, which contains other cell structures. This cytosol has other cell components or other cell structures. Clear? So the next is DNA. It is a nucleic acid found in cells. It contains the genetic information, basically the nucleus part that has chromosomes which carries DNA, and these DNA are responsible for the transmission of traits from parents to offspring. They carry genetic information. Okay. Now we are going to discuss about cell components and their types. So the cell components are, first is cell wall. Cell wall is actually a prominent part of cell. This is a outline, additional outer layer, which is specifically found in plant cell. Okay, so this provides support and shape and protects them from mechanical injury. So this is important. You have to be specific with it, because if question asks you the role of cell wall, then it should be it provides support, shape, and it protects plants from mechanical injury, the cells from mechanical injury. Okay, so here I'm giving you an additional point. Cell wall is made up of cellulose. It is made up of cellulose, and it has a special protein. It has a special protein. The special protein is pectin. Okay, so this is also important, because sometimes they may ask you question about the protein. So this is pectin. Okay, and cell wall is made up of what? Cellulose, and it has a special protein called pectin. Clear? Let's move to the next part. Cell membrane. This I have already told you before. It is the outer covering of a cell within which all other organelles are enclosed. So this is like this. If I draw, it should be like this. So here the nucleus, okay, here the cytoplasm, here you will find the other cell organelles like Golgi bodies, mitochondria, Golgi bodies, ER, centrioles, vacuoles, etc. It separates the cell from the external environment. Okay, it protects the cell from the external environment. It is usually porous membrane. Porous means they are selective in nature. This we will discuss later in the other sessions. Okay, because here I'm just giving you the brief idea about the cell membrane. The next is cell organelles. Cell organelles are composed of various cell structures. Okay, various cell structures that perform certain specific function to carry out life processes. Usually the cell organelles are nucleolus, nuclear membrane, as I have discussed you just here with this diagram. Okay, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi bodies, ribosomes, important for protein synthesis, mitochondria, important. This is the powerhouse of the cell. These are the important points that we will discuss later, but this you all have to be specific with. Okay, lysosomes, also called suicidal bags, chloroplast, vacuoles. These are the cell organelles that we will discuss later. Okay, this is the typical diagram of a cell, and as you see, this is the this outer membrane is called nuclear membrane. This is nucleolus. This is the nucleus. So altogether we call it nucleus. Okay, these are the Golgi apparatus. These are the Golgi vesicles. These small vesicles are called mitochondria. So there are a number of mitochondria, as you see. Mitochondrion or mitochondria, the plural form. Okay, centrioles. These are the microtubules. This is cytoplasm, the watery liquid part. Okay, Ribosome for protein synthesis. This is the cell membrane. And if I typically draw a plant cell, I will have to make an additional layer which is of cellulose, as I have told you before. Okay, smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough. ER are usually of two types: rough because they have protein ribosomes on it. Okay, smooth because they don't have ribosomes on their surface. Lysosomes, these are called suicidal bags. Golgi vesicles, and this is pinocytic vesicle. Okay, this is for excretion. So this is a typical diagram of a cell. Well, student, this is all for today. In the next part, we will discuss cell components in a very detailed manner. This is all for today. And if you feel that the video is worthy to you all, do subscribe our channel for more updates. Don't forget to like, share among your friends so that they also get advantage of the session. Okay, so let's end the session. Thank you.